Welcome back to Caffeine Confessionals. My name is Allan. We are here today to talk about the Challenge All-Stars 5 Rivals Episode 7. I'm joined by my lovely co-host. We have the Southern Luke Muncie,
What's up, guys?
the Vermontian Zoe Trimboli.
Hi, everyone.
The game's heated up. We're down to 8 people, and it felt very sudden, especially when we got to the house vote later this episode, because you're seeing oh man, there really aren't that many teams on the table left to be voted for, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a 12-episode season, I think is what Mark Long tweeted. So the fact that we're already more than halfway is good, because usually around episode 7, we're a third of the way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still with it.
Yeah, I am excited to see where it goes from here. I think there is just the perfect amount of tension in the house moving forward.
A lot of tension, a house divided, even within alliances themselves. We talked about it last week with Shane and Davon having this little get-together type scene where it's I'm on one side of the house, you're on one side of the house. And it really didn't amount to nothing within last week's episode, but this week we're really seeing it.
Yeah, and I still maintain that there's a right side to stay with, but we're going to talk about it as we go through. But I definitely felt like this was Shane's episode where he just finally stepped into the season and was like, hello, which we've seen some stuff on Twitter this past week of perhaps Shane was doing more than we might have seen, but had been edited out, which I hate when they do that because it then makes us think that our favorites are being boring. So I'm going to blame production for that. But this was definitely a Shane episode, a Shane and Frank and Veronica episode, I would say.
Yeah, Frank and Veronica have kind of emerged as stars of the season, which I think Frank, we definitely expected something in his return. And anyone that downplays what Veronica does for the show is just a hater, really. Because regardless of her level of competition, she always brings something. And there's just enough tension between the history of these people that are on these different sides of the house and trying to figure out how to navigate that, and just different levels of actual physical gameplay too.
Yeah, let's draw a picture of what the actual alliance lines are, or theoretically are. So you got Veronica and Katie with Adam and Steve, which is I think very solid. That's the OGs. They're in lockstep with each other. Even when everyone was voting for Steve and Adam, they still would not vote for them. Then you have Nicole and Melissa, who are attached to them. Nicole via Adam and Steve, and kind of Veronica too as well. I mean, Veronica did convince Nicole not to throw her into elimination, and they did all-stars together. So I think there is some sort of alliance there.
I think Nicole's also just a dumb dog being led around by Veronica.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to say this on the podcast last week, and I forgot to say it. I do think there are certain players in the game who should recruit Veronica to be their number one ally, just to run their game, just for her to run their game. Because she's never going to beat you in the final, when it comes to anything physical, but she knows how to play this game so well. And Nicole could use someone like Veronica just to guide her through it.
Well, and I think because Nicole and Melissa have such a giant asterisk next to them when it comes to mental gameplay, that they could definitely be a team that sneaks their way into the final and may have a chance at winning just because their physicality will be so much greater than every other team there potentially.
Yeah, and anything can happen in these finals. I even made a little video about it. We had a final 2 seasons ago in All-Stars 2 where none of day one mattered. Just eat a plate of food and solve a math problem. And according to people who were in that final, they solved the math problem and the lock still didn't open. So who knows?
Yeah. I agree with the thought that perhaps people like Nicole need their game played for them. And I did keep thinking, though, with Veronica saying she wants to keep the weak teams, Adam and Steve aren't weak. I mean, I don't remember who just said this, but I think it was Zoe. Nicole and Melissa, if they get in its cardio base, they're winning. So I don't know if it's like, I don't know if I believe they're trying to keep bad teams as much as minions at the moment. Either way, I mean, Veronica's smart.
I also think Veronica's the type of person where she's like, if I can't win, I want my friend to win.
True.
And there is this continual aspect of like, they are the strong team, but they are also public enemy number one, and people keep taking shot and shot and shot after them. So they are a shield to them as well. The shield just keeps on surviving.
Yeah.
Also part of the alliance. Now this is where things get hairy. Shane and Davon were the obvious part of their alliance because Shane's connection to Veronica. I mean, they've been good friends for 20 plus years. I mean, Shane was wearing the "Where's Rachel, Where's Veronica" t-shirts all the way back then. He was like, I mean, he wasn't part of the Mean Girls, but if the Mean Girls had like a fourth member, the same way the Lavender Lace do, it probably would have been Shane.
Yeah. This whole, I know we're going to talk about it later, but this whole episode, I think, just makes me intrigued by Veronica and Shane's relationship, because I know they've always been close. I mean, I've seen the tweets when Shane was still on Twitter. We've seen even in like recent seasons in the early 30s that they're close. I just never would have imagined a time where they weren't going to be like side by side. And we've really not seen Shane do that thus far, like be her right-hand man.
Well, I think a big part of that is Shane is naturally playing a very different game than Veronica because the caliber of his team is so much better.
Yeah.
Shane was a big reason why Veronica came back to the challenge. He did Invasion, and then he was telling all these OGs like, come back, come back, come back, and like Veronica opened the door, was back for 30, and then did a bunch of seasons after. I mean, Shane really opened the door for a lot of OGs to even. I don't know if we have All Stars now if like Shane didn't like nudge the door open for all these people who came back in the years after he did.
Yeah.
But where things get a little bit messy, then is now we have Frank, who's very quickly become close with Veronica. And I think it's because those two are both just truly high-level game players.
And high-level game players on teams that are destined to lose. Like their teams are so similar to each other in that capacity, and in that like they're anchored in a very serious way.
Friendship or perfect chemistry and ideology when it comes to gameplay. And we're seeing it come into play in this episode, and like Shane is very clearly threatened by it for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I don't know how people are going to react to Shane's reaction. He looked very unbothered in a lot of situations on tonight's episode, but he was bothered, I'm sure. But I don't blame him. I would be very upset if I had a friend this close and I saw her actively making gameplay decisions that could impact me with someone that I might not have the best relationship with.
He does not trust Frank.
Yeah.
No, should he? No one should trust Frank. Except for maybe Katie and Veronica, because they are the only team that do not pose a threat to Frank.
Yeah.
Other side of the house, then we have Fessy and Amber, Nani and Turbo as like their big brother alliance. And then Dario and Ashley are somewhere in the middle because they're with Frank via Ashley, but even then they're not fully with the big brother people. They're this team with the star. They're kind of a threat, but kind of not a threat at the same time.
Their time is coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're being like dragged along as a number for Frank, and he'll find a way to get rid of them without getting blood on his hands, I think.
I feel the same. They're disposable to him, and I'm sure he loves Ashley, but Ashley and Dario would beat Sam and Frank in any final you could throw at them right now because of the anchor on Frank's team.
Unless we got the All Stars 2 final and you just eat a plate of food and do some math, because then it's over real quick and Frank and Sam are kicking
That's
their
true. That's true.
Oh, and also with that Big Brother crew, Shane and Davon are also part of that as well, which is the crux of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in some ways Shane knows that it's better for their game to go with like the weak side of the house potentially, but his distrust of Frank, which is valid, and the fact that, man, I just lost my thought.
Well, I was gonna say that it's picking between the lesser two evils. Do you go with the weak side that you can beat, but are you going to be the first person they pick off when the numbers are down?
Yeah.
Versus you might go with the stronger people, but they have a better chance of winning these dailies. And I say that with an asterisk because anybody can win these dailies, as we've seen the past 2 weeks. But I don't know, it's hard. And he even said in this episode that for this game, he wants to play a game where somebody else makes the big decisions and he can just play off of them. He does not want to like mastermind anything. And I think that's kind of smart for him if he can make it through these next like 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's very interesting because Shane is typically one of those people who goes for the big threats. He makes the risky moves. He makes the game, he got the Lady Alliance to take out Bananas and Tony early into the game on Final Reckoning. There was a redemption house, of course, but they were always making big moves. When they got called down into elimination, instead of going for a weak team, they called out Kyle and Brad, and they took a shot at a strong team who would be a big threat in the final. It's truly just his distaste for Frank here that's coming into play, because other than that, like, Shane is usually lockstep with the gameplay that Veronica and Frank are playing right now.
Do we know where the dislike originates from?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't either.
Like, is it online?
I'm not saying it's rational, but I'm saying I get why he does have the weird feelings now. Because again, if my best friend is buddied up with somebody else and making decisions, I'm going to feel a type of way. And I also think that Shane and Frank are not the type of people who are going to sit down and be like, hey, let's hash this out. Maybe we could work together. I think that once there's even an inkling of bad blood, it's on.
I also think that Shane is like a bit passive aggressive, and Frank's openly said he just doesn't give a shit about any of these people. So, yeah. And I mean, is Shane just good at reading that energy? Like, and he doesn't see the point in clearing the air because I don't know.
It's like you have two like musicians and bands, and they play very similar music, and people are going to be like, oh, hey, that song sounds like this person's song. And I think Shane and Frank play very similar games. They fill very similar roles in this show, but they don't like being compared to one another, and they don't like hearing their music and someone else. They're like, oh, that person just stole my beat right there. And I think that's where it comes from. Some people will see that, like Veronica sees it, and she's like, oh, me and Frank, we should work together because we think the same. We have the same mindset when it comes to this. And Shane and Frank are like, I do this better. I do this better. We're never going to work together in this way.
And Shane's also feeling territorial over Veronica.
I mean, this was supposed to be Shane's big return, and so far it's been Frank's big return. So, got to feel a little bit outstaged.
Yeah, that is true. And I've seen people in like interviews and podcasts post-show being like, maybe Shane was playing it cool because like he wanted to like save face to be able to get back for more seasons. I don't think he cares. I think I might have said this last week. I was so sick, I can't remember. But I think that Shane really just wants to lay low and win. And I think that Frank really is the only threat to that right now because him and Davon have been laying very low.
Absolutely. Daily challenge time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, daily challenge. Players were running from opposite sides towards these boards that had time zones and clocks on them, and they had to memorize them. Once they decided they had the numbers down or the math down, they would then light them on fire and run through them. It was a little overdramatic, but it was kind of fun. They did this, I think, 8 times total, and then at the end they had to then put the clocks back in time from what they were supposed to have memorized.
Sure. Visually, a waste of my time.
Yeah, I think it wasn't until maybe Veronica explained it that it was all in reference to LA time. Like LA time was 0 and everything else had to be adapted from that. Yeah, it was funny just to watch how little most of these teams even thought about it at all.
Yeah, and I really feel like if I were there competing, this would be challenging. But as a viewer, it was like, oh my God, I do not care to sit and listen to Amber B say, Tokyo 10-2. Like it drug on for me.
I did enjoy watching Fessy make a point to jump through it while it was flaming just so he could look cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was absolutely the sole purpose. He was going for like a cool camera time moment.
Which is predictable.
After I saw that, I was like, we got to make every single cast member do that. Just so I can get the visual of seeing everyone attempt it.
Could all of them even jump through? Like, a lot of them had to climb.
No, but that's why I wanted the visual of every single person attempting.
Yeah, like Katie trying to climb through it while it's flaming. I mean, the commentary would have been gold.
Part of this daily challenge too was about who was the fastest to accomplish, who was the most accurate in the challenge of like putting them all together. And then from there, the tiebreaker from there is who was the fastest. Dario and Ashley probably didn't have a single one right, honestly. It seemed like they were clueless during the daily challenge, but Dario was like, you know what? I'm just going to say check, and hopefully these other teams then go into a tizzy and just say check too.
Do you think that was a real strategy, or that's what he said after the fact?
I think it's what he said after the fact because it's what happened. I think that he probably like crapped the bed by igniting them too early, and then it was like, well, we have no choice but to say check now. But I was shocked because as much as I couldn't completely understand the directions, I knew that it didn't matter if you were first. You would rather just be most accurate. I feel like we saw something like that on 42 where someone jumped and they were first, but they were missing. I don't know. Dario's kind of an idiot.
Oh, big time.
And I know that you all have been saying it the past few weeks, and I don't know why I didn't catch up on this from his previous seasons, but like, yeah, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, he's dumb.
And Ashley's not much brighter at all.
They're just two beautiful idiots, truly.
Yeah.
They always have been. Always will be.
But the scurry of everyone just saying check out of nowhere was hilarious. And I'm glad that you only got one check and then you're done. Because this would have been the most annoying daily challenge if we just got 50 checks of people just attempting. No, you get one check and then you're done.
Well, that's I misunderstood Dario at first when he was talking because I was like, oh, he said check just to like fluster them and everyone had to stop. And then once I realized it was only one check, I was like, oh, so there was actually no purpose to what he did.
Yeah.
In a way, it did take out a lot of teams, but ultimately it was going to come down to two teams anyway, because the two teams who didn't say check were Shane and Davon and Veronica and Katie, and they decided to take their damn time.
Imagine a team that's not comprised of morons.
And even during the daily challenge itself, like Veronica and Katie were like going back and forth before they were even exploding their team. They were actually taking time to like memorize it and learn the challenge, because they're like, oh, it's about most accurate, and that's not about most time. We listened. We don't have to jump through the fire.
Yeah.
It was anybody's game, and Katie and Veronica, being again not idiots, were at an advantage this time.
And who won the daily challenge?
Veronica and Katie.
Veronica. What? She like wins like a daily challenge almost every other season in these like solo pair. She still gets these wins. Like, she got a bunch of wins on All Stars 3. She got a win in that trivia challenge last season in All Stars 4. Veronica, like, people shun her as a competitor, and there's a lot of stuff she can't do physically, but she still gets wins.
Yeah, I would have, which is great. I mean, I'll give it to her all day long. I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see Shane and Davon have to choose a side. I just thought that would be really, really pivotal.
It would have been fun, but I also think anytime Veronica is in power, it's fun as well, because she never wastes any power she has. She plays the game at a high level, and she always is willing to make big risks. I mean, we saw last week in the move she pulled off. I thought they were going to be blood in the water because of the move they made last week, and the people didn't vote them in. Instead, no, she's in power. And we got to see more turmoil between her and Shane as they try to figure out who's going to be the house vote and who's going, and what's the play going to be.
And I would argue not between her and Shane.
No, yeah.
Like,
yeah, it came down to one team being the swing vote here.
Someone want to explain the plan?
Explain the what?
Explain the plan. What was the play?
I don't remember. Was it supposed to be Nani and Turbo as the house vote? And then all I know is that Shane went around and told people, we've got to get Frank and Sam in. Okay, we figure out who they is. It's got to be them. And Katie even says at the bar the night before the elimination, like, everybody is celebrating a little bit too much when we are the people in power who have not made a decision. But it's because Shane has been going around saying this likely has to be what it is. And I won't even give it all to Shane. Like, I think that Nani is actually showing some political prowess in this episode of like, okay, I like Frank, but like, clearly this is going my direction. We've got to shift this. But what sucks is Melissa and Nicole are the team that have to be the swing vote. And I get that that's a very hard place to be in. But if somebody says to me, if you follow through, like, this plan goes through, I would have to follow through. Like, and I feel bad for Melissa, which I never feel like I would ever say, but she clearly wants to make a move, but Nicole is just so up Veronica's like ass. I don't know. And I don't know, because it might be smart for Nicole to be there. I don't know.
I see this from both angles, because I actually think the better move for Nicole and Melissa is to go with Veronica's plan, Veronica's side of things, which is to vote in Fessy and Amber. That's who they're targeting on that side of the house. I think it's a better move for their team. Do I think that they made that move thinking that it was because it was better for their team? No. Nicole was intimidated by Veronica and her like mafia moves of scaring the shit out of her, basically saying like, if you don't side with us, I'm voting you in. And this is the part that I didn't quite get. Okay, Nicole, if you don't side with them, you're going in against Frank and Sam. Why is that scary? That shouldn't be scary. I think, again, it's a better move for their team to be at the end of this game with Veronica, Frank, and Sam. Hopefully not Dario and Ashley, but like with that side of the house. And Melissa, I don't really get, because her personality is so like, she has such a big bark. And she even said out loud at one point while they're conspiring that she just has to speak before Nicole does. And she had the opportunity to, and then she chickened out.
Yeah, I did think that when Veronica got on a little bit of, I don't want to say a power trip. I think she got scared whenever she came back from the bar. I was like, whatever the plan is, that's not what's happening. Nicole, what have you heard? Yada, yada. But when Melissa came in there and Veronica was like barking at her, like, you don't get to make that decision. You're not in control. And Melissa was like, you could just see her face. She was like, I know how this game works. Like, I was hoping she would lose her mind, because she does have a big bark, because we've seen it. But you're right. Then in confessionals to say, I've got to overpower Nicole, like, but you didn't. And like, you can complain that she's throwing your game under the bus, but you're also letting her make every single call.
Yeah, which is so weird.
We talked about Shane being like under edited. Melissa's edit this entire season is just her complaining about being Nicole's partner, but really nothing more than that. Like, we're seeing none of her actual personality or her own individual gameplay or interests. So I don't even like, what does she want in this game?
I can't remember if I said this last week, but there were all kinds of like spoilers or whatever on Twitter saying that Melissa and Big T fell out on the season. So I'm like, which we didn't see. I did say this last week. I don't know if it happened afterwards, because maybe Big T felt like she sided with Veronica, but we are getting a very one-dimensional Melissa this season, which love.
Yeah. The only personal aspect of Melissa we've seen is, like we talked about, like her falling out with Big T was a rumor online. Instead, we're seeing her emotionally broken up at the beginning of the episode about losing Big T in the game. So it's the complete opposite of the rumors, but that's the only personal aspect she's really brought to the game this season.
I don't know if, because at first I was frustrated with Shane for giving all the information to Nicole and Melissa. Like, I would have left Nicole out of that conversation because her mouth is so big and she's so desperate to please the people that she's aligned with that she'll literally tell them everything. And maybe this is me just having the benefit of being a viewer, right? Like, maybe Shane doesn't know that about Nicole. I wish that they had just really leaned on Melissa, but based on the Melissa we've seen this season, I don't know if it would have changed anything because she seems like she's not willing to buck up to Nicole.
Let's get into that actual house vote. They were Shane made his pitch to Melissa and Nicole, and it very much seemed like they were not sure what they were doing, even going into the house vote right then and there. Shane is one of the first votes on Frank and Sam, along with Nany and Turbo, because as we talked about, Nany and Turbo, they're trying to make that move against them. Dario and Ashley also vote for. Fessy and Amber vote for Frank and Sam. And now the votes on the other side go. Adam and Steve vote for Fessy and Amber. Dario and Ashley vote for Fessy and Amber because Ashley's number one is Frank. Amber takes personal offense to this because we've seen those two basically hanging out the entire season. They formed a really good bond, but Frank is ultimately her number one.
Which it wasn't until this moment I had to think, yeah, if you're Amber and Fessy who are in danger, I would have maybe tried to get the house vote to be somebody else that's not. I mean, because they like Dario and Ashley would have voted for Steve and Adam. And I know that like people have complained that that's boring, but like, I don't know why they ever thought that Ashley would vote for those two people.
I think that Fessy is really complacent in the way that he plays this game because I think he's cocky. And I think sometimes he either thinks he can beat anyone or that like people wouldn't actually be ballsy enough to make a move against him. Because Fessy easily could have used his man card with Nicole because Nicole's so desperate to be one of the guys. If he was willing to do the work politically, I think he could have gotten Nicole to change her mind. Because Nicole is like a weird version of a pick-me.
Yeah.
Like, not the classic archetype that we're used to, but is very much a pick-me.
Yeah, I see it.
I think me and Zoe talked about this a couple weeks ago, where it's like, has Nicole ever thrown said anything negative about a guy on the show? And we couldn't really even come up with a moment of that. At least a straight male, at least.
Yeah, I'd have to think, but that alone is like indicative of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank and Sam obviously also vote for Fessy and Amber in this situation, and then it comes down to Nicole, Melissa, and they look like they're not even sure what they're gonna do. They're talking in circles. Eventually, though, they vote for Fessy and Amber. I'm gonna be, you know what? Luke said he didn't, wasn't a fan of Nicole's choice. I'm gonna say the opposite and actually disagree with him and say Nicole siding with Veronica here is the smart move because her and Melissa have just not been a good team this season at all. They like in every daily challenge. I would actually say like in the daily challenges, they've been worse than Frank and Sam and Katie. Now Katie and Veronica have a win. Frank and Sam haven't been close. Melissa and Nicole have not been close to winning anything this season. They're a bottom tier team based on performance so far. So they got to take some shots at these big teams.
Yeah, I think when Zoe pointed out that if they can ride with Veronica, Katie, Sam, Frank, and X team to the end, it swayed me that it is a good move. I just like to hate on Nicole. So I think that's what that boils down to.
Well, I think it's a smart move that wasn't made in that way. I think it was made because Nicole was effectively intimidated and bullied by Veronica into doing it. Mm-hmm. Nicole wasn't actually like thinking about the long game. Nicole was just thinking, Veronica said she's voting us in if we don't vote the way she wants. And so she just got scared. I don't think it was like a really thoughtful, intentional, intelligent thing that she did. She lucked into being scared into doing the smart thing.
Yeah.
Well, Veronica saved her butt in that scenario in two ways because I think it is ultimately the smart move because you got to go for these big teams, and I talked about it last week. What frustrates me about I mean, obviously Shane does not like Frank, but when you start gathering votes in this game to try and take out a team that is the least big threat in the final, what are you doing here? Because like if your goal is to win, you keep that team around and you don't derail your entire game just to get them out.
But on the flip side, that team is orchestrating everything. So I do understand the desire to do that because I don't care if they're weak. If everybody's going to see them as weak, nobody's going to want to get them out. And eventually it's going to fall back on Shane and Davon. And I think that Frank wouldn't, well, I think that Frank would admit it. I think Frank's fine with driving a wedge between Veronica and Shane. I actually, like, we talked 2 weeks before they threw in Leroy and Devin versus Adam and Steve, and we're like, it's too early. And then when it was time to do it, we're like, okay, it was the perfect time. Listen, I'd want to take Frank and Sam to the end all day long, but they're running the game votes wise, politically. Like, wanting to get them out doesn't bother me that much, especially if you know that when they're gone, Veronica's going to fall right into your lap and say, okay, what should we do next?
Yeah, I think you're both right, honestly, because I think, Allan, it's totally legit.
Yeah.
I keep the worst team around. And I think Shane's really looking at this as a, like, how can I maneuver through this house and how can I control what's happening? And he knows that Veronica is more aligned with the way Frank sees this game than the way Shane sees this game. And without Frank there anymore, Shane has more pull with Veronica. And I think that's what he's thinking is important.
I'm just still laughing at that. I don't think Frank would mind driving a wedge between like Shane and Veronica. I wish we had a bloodline season because Frank would be putting wedges between people who are father and son, brother and sister. He'll put wedges between anyone, and that's why I love Frank.
Oddly enough, I am not like his biggest fan this season. I think he's doing great things, and I think he is the reason that All Stars 5 is doing so well because, you know, he's creating the drama. But there's something about that is irritating me. And it's not because like I'm a big Shane fan. I'm really kind of not actually. I just like Ashley and Amanda, as you all know. But I guess he's reclaiming that spot for me at the end of the episode where he says like, yeah, it's me. I'm the person doing this. But we've seen so many times in the house and being like, why am I the scapegoat? Why is everybody doing this? And I couldn't tell that was a play at first. I thought he was really like having this victim mentality, and that's been rubbing me the wrong way this whole time. But I don't know. He's definitely polarizing, and that is everything we need. I don't care if I hated Frank, which I don't. Like, I want that type of person on my TV because it gives people stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
Frank's a legitimate one.
No, go ahead.
Frank is a legitimate TV villain, and I love him on my TV. That does not mean I have to root for him to like win a seed, but I love him and I want him on every season. Well, not maybe every season because then he'll go even more crazy than he is now. But he is such good TV. But do I want him to win ultimately? No, but I still am invested in him just being on the show.
Yeah,
No, I was just gonna say it's why, like, when I initially watched Battle of the Seasons, I hated it so much because I was so invested in the outcome of that season and so disappointed by who won because I was so adamant about rooting against Team San Diego. But it's why watching it now on a rewatch, it's such a good season because there's like such dynamic characters and these people that aren't Frank is not afraid to be a villain. Like, I think him and Veronica are making such a good ploy for traders right now. Yeah. Like, get them on the traders. They would kill it.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It makes me want to see Frank maybe take a season off because I think that people who take the time off are always welcome back, even if they're hated, like they're welcome back. We saw it with Cara Maria, like people that do that are intelligent. When Tori Deal comes back to 42, she's going to be so welcomed. It's going to be crazy. But every time I watch an episode this season, I can't help but think, what if Frank had been on World of Worlds 2 on that American team? Like, just sub him in for like, I don't know, somebody could have been chopped off or maybe not. I don't know. But like, it would have been insanity. But yeah, I like the perspective that you can want somebody on TV but not root for them. I think that's where I'm at. If he were with Nani right now, I would be rooting for it. But like seeing him and Sam squeak out a win would just not do it for me.
There's no way. You don't have to worry about that.
I'm generally trying to think about who would you take off that War of the Worlds 2 cast.
I almost said Josh, but I'm done pretending like Josh doesn't add something to the seasons he does.
What's funny? I agree with that. And after his name, I was gonna say Leroy, but like no, then Leroy and Cam got back together that season, and I was like, probably Zach would be the name you remove.
Honestly, and I know he won, but CT, he was just there.
That was the second name I was gonna say, but they sent him to the other team, so like they took on Turbo.
But can you imagine if Frank had been the person instead of CT, and they would have chose Turbo over Frank, and Frank went to the UK? Gosh, it would have been good TV. Sorry, CT. Okay, so the elimination. We get to the elimination, which happened 5 years after.
We're just talking about War of the Worlds 2 with Frank now for the next 30 minutes. No, we're just like episode 1.
Gosh.
He's carrying the flag, then he's swimming, no, I'm kidding. Okay, elimination time, like you said, Luke.
So we get to the elimination, and we see that it is quite simple, and the contestants have to scratch off a puzzle key, which they probably.
We should say who's in the elimination.
Okay, either way, does it go for it?
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, who are they going to call out? Because before the elimination even happens, Veronica has this thing like, okay, but if we vote in Dario and Ashley or Nani and Turbo, those are strong teams who are going to come back trying to get us, which like made me think like, wait, are they going to like wimp out on a move? Nope, Veronica still shoots big. She goes Turbo and Nani, Fessy and Amber, two strongest teams in the game besides Steve and Adam, who is our number one ally, being pitted against each other.
Yeah. So they get down and have to scratch off a key, which doesn't even seem like they needed a key because the puzzle was pretty self-explanatory, but you had to scratch off a key. And when you felt confident, you could go get your pieces, and the fastest to do a puzzle, which was a group cast photo
that they took.
Yeah, like won the elimination. So
it was the kind of puzzle that you don't need to look at the box to solve. So I think once they started scratching off that image of what they were trying to recreate and realized what it was, they should have gone straight to solving it.
Yeah.
It was like a 25-piece puzzle. It was not. It was a 25-piece jigsaw puzzle. It was not hard to do. It was so easy. And Turbo and Nani win the elimination. It was over in like a minute and a half because that's how long it took. It was not. Neither team was tested.
And Turbo really did it. I love to hype my girl up any chance I get, but Turbo like basically realized what it was, raced over, and was like, "Let's put this thing together."
I mean, you could just throw those pieces on. You don't have to look at where they're going. They're just it was that simple. It's 25. It wasn't. It was nothing. It was not a difficult puzzle at all. And I'm not shitting on anyone. It's just I'm mad at production. What the fuck was this elimination?
It was lazy, especially for two excellent teams. It's so silly. Like there's so many we've seen so many good eliminations on this show. So like there's been, especially in All Stars, but across the board recently, you have these powerhouse players playing these really stupid games to determine who goes home. It's just a waste of a potentially great TV moment. Like I even think back to the last elimination in Ride or Dies with Fessy and Mariah and Nani and Bananas, and like the cool moments that came from that elimination and how challenging it was. I'm not saying you should make Fessy do it again, because clearly that was not the game for him, but like there's so many good eliminations we could do a not so fast with partners, like.
Yep.
Well, even that elimination they did on Spies, whatever it's called, that Amber and Huey beat Corey and Michelle, and where they had to just go through the pole maze together. That was fun and entertaining because the two teams could even chirp each other, and there was like you had to like talk about it and talk through things. There was like physicality a little bit, but also like flexibility and communication. This was just solve a 25-piece jigsaw puzzle.
I just think they're really phoning it in, and like just based on how we've seen them repeat the locations too, and making dailies and things really similar to season 40, like it just feels like production's being a little lazy.
And I'll maintain too, and people are probably going to say that this is a bad thought. I'm fine with there not being all-star seasons if it's going to be like overlapping casts. Like, I understand the need to have it so we can get people like the Franks who don't want to commit to 10 weeks and maybe can just do 4. But like, it just seems like this is season 40 2.0, and it literally is. It's in the same location. I just.
Hey, did you watch the trailer for next week's episode? Because they're doing a daily challenge that we basically just saw at the end of 41, but just like slightly tinkered. They're driving off a cliff again.
It's like a 4-wheeler instead of a car
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, because they lost all their cars in the previous daily challenge.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I don't know. It's weird because I hate, like, we are so nostalgic. I mean, not just us, I think people who watch the challenge, but I think back to when All Stars 1 came out, like some of that cast I wasn't moved by, but I was specifically because it was like a big deal that they were back. And it felt like it's new, totally separate thing. And this doesn't. And again, I've said many times in this podcast, I'm not advocating for just OGs, but like, if we're going to get repeats of Leroy's and Devon's and whatever, why are we also getting repeats of things that those people have just done?
Yeah. There should be a distinction between either someone that's been like taking a long break or people that haven't been around in a while or people really like at the top of the heap if we're going to do all stars. Like there's so many people on this cast that don't need to be on this cast.
Well, and it's like, I'm about to go on a small rant. I'm going to hone it in. This being a rival season and half the teams being newer teams, it's like, then just have a rivals flagship show. People have been begging for that. And it's cool you experimented on All-Stars 5, but All-Stars 1 through 4 worked really well, not even having to have a theme because of the personalities. Like, and if you keep up with spoilers and know what the current name of season 41 is, it's like, give us anything. But what we're being given, I don't know. I hate to be negative. I liked the episode.
No,
the episode was great. Rewind back to like our feelings about the episode in general. It was a great episode, especially because of the way that it wrapped up with the confessional that we had.
For them, we do have to acknowledge Fessy and Amber are eliminated. They were probably, I mean, we talked about who's like most likely to win these past few weeks. They were probably number 1 or 2 on our board for the final. And now they're just completely out of the game because of a 25-piece jigsaw puzzle.
It was nice to hear Fessy acknowledge that he's an idiot for dumping Amber and double agents. I mean, he didn't really fully own what an idiot he was. Especially,
I still defend that move. I mean, if you watched Amber that whole season, like nothing would indicate she was going to do that. I mean, suddenly she was solving puzzles and like eating gross food in the.
She didn't really solve the puzzles. CT solved all the puzzles. She just set the pace when they were running.
There was like one memorization portion though that she won, like where you got to memorize the color code. But like it was one of those things where like like Darrell was like, I got to ditch Amber near the end of that season too, even. So everyone like Amber's performance on that season was like not very good, and then in the final she put up a dominant performance. Like I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. I just feel for her because as they left, she's like, Fessy's family now. And I'm like, this is what you do, Amber. You do this. And
Amber, she needs like a guard dog personality to be with her on these seasons because she's so tenderhearted and so like open to loving these people. And they all just don't actually give a shit about her the way that she cares about them.
Right.
6 weeks ago, they won that second daily challenge, or 5 weeks ago. She talked about how she did not like Nicole and didn't trust her relationship with Adam and Steve, and like, oh, maybe I should vote in Adam and Steve. Did not vote them in on the basis that Melissa is a mother. 5-6 weeks later, Melissa and Nicole are the tie-breaking vote that sends them into this elimination. And it's like, maybe go with your gut. Maybe just make the move you're saying out loud and stop having so many. But you know what? You're a human, have emotions if you want. But when it comes to gameplay, if you don't trust someone and you see they're in an alliance with someone, feel free to vote them in.
Yeah. She has to stop being so scared to hurt people's feelings or to lose their friendship when she doesn't really have a deep level of friendship with them to begin with.
And when she calls Fessy family, I'm like, oh, she's setting herself up for the season 41 or 42 betrayal.
Yeah, absolutely she is.
But they're off the board now. So now the concept of a team winning this final is a lot more open to other people, though I will say the gap between Adam and Steve and the next best team is getting bigger.
Yep.
Adam and Steve also were not even on the board when it came to the whole house vote this week, which was huge.
I think just because people are scared. I mean, I don't even think I think people are scared that if they go in against them, they're going to lose because you've already seen them win 4 eliminations.
What kind of elimination are you going to beat them in at this point? They're smarter than everyone. They're in shape, and they're in just as good a shape or close to. Like they're, because I think Adam and Steve are in as good a shape as Nani. And sometimes you're as good as your weakest link, right? So like Turbo might be in better shape, but they're in as good a shape as Nani. So like that's fine. Maybe Dario and Ashley are in a little better shape, but they're so dumb.
Well, and I think what it would boil down to is a crapshoot. And that's definitely not something you can vote them in as the house vote. You'd have to be in power and be the team picking down in the sand and be like, oh, this is, stacking logs and Turbo's a world-class log stacker. I don't know. I don't know, but like there are very few options where you could with certainty be like, yeah, they're going to go.
Especially now that Amber and Fessy are gone. I think they were the team that had the best chance of eliminating Adam and Steve.
Yeah.
Maybe like a daily elimination where you got to like hold up your partner physically, like via like a rope or something like that. Like kind of like the elimination that Frank and Sam did on Battle of the Season, where like one person's diving into water and the other person's weight's attached to them, or like when the ride or die elimination when Tommy couldn't lift up Annalise. Because they're two guys, if you have to lift up another guy, and if you have one of these like male-female pairs that are probably better suited for it. But even then, Adam and Steve, I'd still give them a fighting chance because they're just good at everything.
Yeah.
Back to that confessional, though.
Yes, back to that confessional.
I don't know what the confessionals you're talking about.
At the end of the episode, it's just Frank bragging about what control he has over this house and how he is basically just a master manipulator who everyone is just doing his bidding, and he's just like, who's they? I'm they. It felt like cinema.
Okay, this has been on my mind the past 2 weeks. Every single time, like one of them in confessional or sitting there, I've been like, am I they? Am I they? I'm like, it kills me. Because it's like you would know. But yeah, that's the confessional I referenced earlier that I forgot about. Happy he took accountability and ownership because it's cool that you're like causing this chaos. Is this in the same breath that he says that Shane is insecure?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, amongst a lot of things too. I mean, we had a lot of Shane Frank interactions this episode, including Shane doing his massage gun the entire time, and Frank ending with like, "Oh, I hope you enjoy your vibrator thingy."
Frank was so bothered in that moment.
Well, that's why I said at the beginning that Shane seemed unbothered, because at the end of this episode, like Frank is saying things, like having his absolute freak out meltdown, and Shane's just sitting there like, how about that? Shane is somebody, oddly enough, who I do think when there's chaos around him, he gets calm. And I think back to like when him and Dave Vaughn got into it on Final Reckoning, like she was clearly like very upset, and he just got like super mellow. And like his attack to get under people's skin is to act unbothered. He might be super bothered, but he's definitely mastered the act of being unbothered.
Yeah, because he's definitely bothered by Frank. Case in point, him basically saying to Veronica that he doesn't trust her to choose him over Frank when she's looking him in the eye and saying verbatim, I know that like this is going this way, but I will never choose him over you. And he's just like, don't believe you. You're lying. So he is bothered, but you're right, Luke. He's good at in the moment when people are losing their cool at staying very calm as a way to get under their skin.
Mm-hmm.
he made a comment too, like, "Oh, we're seeing 2012 Frank from 12 years ago." And let me tell you this: did Frank yell this episode? Did he, show a lot of emotions and expressions? Yes, but compared to 2012 Frank, this is not even. You guys, we haven't even scratched the surface of 2012 Frank. 2012 Frank was a completely different beast, because that person would have been taking some low blows at everyone in the house and anyone that even looked at him.
He was like certifiable. Like I hated his guts when he was on those seasons, and I think it was justified.
And even when Frank would do that, there was always a method to his madness too, of like he puts on this big persona and it actually does intimidate people into like going the direction he wants to go. Because Frank can really turn it up to like 11, and then other times we'll have like these little sweet conversations with people and he'll manipulate. And I mean, that's why he's they.
He is they.
Also love the little highlight they put of him being like, Adam and Steve should be the house. So, you should go for Sylvia and Kellyanne, and just seeing all the different plays he's been a part of.
Yeah, like proving his point that every vote he's had a hand in, which is, I mean, if they end up in this final, it's a masterclass, really. They have no business making it this far in this season.
Yeah, we didn't get much Sam this week.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's our episode for the week. We're gonna get more Shane and Frank drama. So if you didn't like us talking about Shane and Frank, well, be prepared because you're gonna get a whole lot more of it next week. Subscribe to us on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast. Thank you all for listening.
See ya.
I know.